Every sculptor who ever carved a human figure from marble faced the same fundamental problem. The stone resists. It does not want to become a face, a hand, a fold of cloth. It has to be forced, millimeter by millimeter, into the shape of something living. And the measure of a sculptor's greatness has always been how completely they can make you forget that resistance. How thoroughly they can make you stop seeing stone and start seeing flesh. But in a small church on one of Rome's most crowded piazzas, a sculptor did something that no one before him had attempted, and no one since has fully explained. He carved a figure of Christ wrapped in a burial shroud, and then he hid him. Not partially, not symbolically, completely. The body beneath the cloth is invisible. Every feature, every contour, every line that would tell you what lies beneath the fabric gone. What remains is only the shape of something wrapped, the suggestion of a body without the body itself, and the effect is not absence. It is something far more difficult to name. The sculpture stands in Saint-Agnes in Agon, a 17th century church built directly on the ruins of an ancient Roman stadium in the Piazza Navona. The church itself is one of the most architecturally ambitious in Rome, commissioned by Pope Innocent X, designed in part by Francesco Borromini. Its facade curving outward in a concave sweep that was considered structurally impossible when it was proposed. Inside, the decoration is dense and theatrical, every surface competing for attention. And yet the figure of the shrouded Christ, set within a side chapel, draws the eye with a gravity that the more elaborate works around it do not. The attribution has never been fully settled. The name most commonly associated with the work is Icoli Ferrata, a Lombard sculptor who spent the productive decades of his career in Rome, working alongside and in the shadow of Gian Lorenzo Bernini. Ferrata was not a minor figure. He produced significant works for major Roman churches, collaborated on projects that shaped the visual identity of the city, and trained sculptors who would go on to define the next generation of Italian Baroque. But the shrouded Christ sits differently from the rest of his output, more restrained, more concentrated, more willing to let absence do the work that other sculptors filled with presence. Some scholars have proposed a second name, Domenico Guidi, another sculptor working in the same Roman orbit during the same period. The documentary evidence for either attribution is incomplete. What is not disputed is the period, the second half of the 17th century, and the location, where the work has remained without interruption for over 350 years. But this is where the story becomes stranger. Consider what it means. Technically, to carve invisibility, when a sculptor carves a veiled figure, the tradition that produced the veiled Christ in Naples, the veiled Virgin in Montreal, the modesty of Corradini, the challenge is to make stone appear transparent, to suggest what lies beneath the cloth by the way the cloth clings and stretches and pulls. The skill is in the revelation, in making the marble thin enough, responsive enough, that the body beneath it seems to breathe through the stone. The shrouded Christ in Saint-Agnes inverts this entirely. The shroud here is not thin. It does not cling. It does not trace the contours of what lies beneath with any desire to be seen through. It falls heavily with the full weight of burial linen, gathering in thick folds at the sides, pooling at the base. It behaves exactly as a shroud should behave, which is to say, it conceals completely, and the technical problem this creates is the opposite of the veiled tradition. Instead of carving thin enough to suggest transparency, the sculptor had to carve thick enough to suggest total opacity while still making the form beneath legible as a human body. The cloth has to read as cloth, heavy, real, final, while the shape beneath it has to read as a person and not merely as an irregular mass of stone. Too much definition and the shroud becomes a veil. Too little and the figure loses its humanity entirely and becomes an object, a wrapped package, something inert. The sculptor found the exact threshold between those two failures and held it. This is not a simpler achievement than the veiled tradition. It is a different kind of difficulty, and in some ways, a more demanding one, because it offers no visual reward. The veiled tradition gives you a face. This gives you only the memory of one. The deeper you look at the shrouded Christ, the more the absence accumulates. There is no face. Where the head should be, the cloth rises in a shape that tells you a head is there. The crown, the slight depression at the temple, the suggestion of a profile, but tells you nothing more. There are no features to read, no expression to interpret, no eyes that are closed or open, no mouth that is parted or sealed. The most communicative part of any human figure has been removed from the equation entirely. What you are left with is the shape of grief, not the face of it. This is where the theology and the technique become impossible to separate. In Christian burial tradition, the shroud is the first and final act of mercy. It covers what the crucifixion has done. It restores a privacy that the execution was designed to destroy. Roman crucifixion was a public spectacle precisely because it was meant to be seen. The humiliation was part of the punishment, the exposed and broken body a warning to everyone who passed. The shroud reverses that logic. It says, this body is no longer available for your inspection. It has been returned to dignity. By that reading, what the sculptor carved is not an absence, but a boundary. The shroud does not hide Christ. It marks the point at which the viewer's access ends. You are permitted to see that he is here. You are not permitted to see what was done to him. And this leads to the first of two readings that the sculpture refuses to resolve. If you stand in front of the shrouded Christ as a devotional object, which is how it was intended to be encountered, in a side chapel of a Roman church, as part of a program of religious art designed to produce contemplation and feeling, and the invisibility is the point. What you cannot see is more present than what you could. The wounds, the exhaustion, the physical destruction of the crucifixion are not shown because they do not need to be shown. You know they are there. Every person who stood in front of this work in the 17th century knew exactly what lay beneath that cloth. The shroud does not suppress the suffering. It concentrates it. By refusing to show you the body, the sculptor forces you to produce it in your own imagination, and the body your imagination produces is always more precise, more personal, more unbearable than anything a chisel could carve. This is the devotional reading. The shroud as mercy, the absence as invitation. But there is a second reading, and it does not lead to consolation. Look at the folds of the shroud, not as burial cloth, but as pure form. There is no tension here, no suggestion of breath or warmth or the proximity of life. The cloth does not cling because there is nothing warm beneath it to cling to. The figure under the shroud is absent in a way that is different from veiled figures, which always imply presence behind the stone. This absence implies departure. In the devotional tradition, Christ's body in the tomb is a temporary condition, 3 days, and then the stone is rolled away and the shroud is found lying empty. But the sculptor fixed this moment in permanent marble, which means it cannot become the next moment. The stone cannot roll away. The shroud cannot be found empty. Whatever is beneath the cloth stays beneath it, permanently, without resolution. If you hold both readings simultaneously, the shroud is mercy and the shroud is permanence, the sculpture stops being a devotional object and becomes a question about what stone can actually hold. Can marble contain the possibility of return? Or does fixing a moment in stone cancel the future that moment was supposed to open into? The sculptor carved a body at the exact moment between death and resurrection and made it impossible for either to happen. Ercole Farita died in Rome in 1686.